So Jay Abraham was working for the Saturday Evening Post. He was doing very, very well about liquidating trade out and creating opportunities in the trade out business of that magazine. And while he was doing that, he was talking a lot with the owner of, I think at the time it was Success Magazine in New York City. And he was helping that person with some of this trade out, and he was also just doing a little bit of consulting with this guy. And the guy actually offered Jay a job, and he basically said he would give Jay $75,000 a year. So Jay flies to New York City with his wife, and he meets with this guy. And the guy basically offers him a job at $75,000 a year, and Jay accepts the position. The problem is when Jay left, he and his wife were in a rental car. They left the office. Somehow they got lost, and they ended up in the South Bronx. And it just completely freaked Jay out. And he drove around aimlessly for hours. He finally flagged down a police officer, and he convinced that police officer to escort him back to his hotel. Jay got to the hotel. He basically got everything out of his hotel. He called the guy, said, "I don't want the position, I've changed my mind." And he flew back to Indianapolis. The problem is Jay quit the job with the Saturday Evening Post because he assumed he was going to be taking this job and moving back to New York City. And what happened, he was telling people this story, and someone said, you might want to contact Chase Revell. Chase Revell owns Entrepreneur. It's also a startup, and he might be interested in doing something with you. And so Jay creates one of these 16-page letters. He sends it to Chase Revell, kind of explains the story. Chase calls Jay and says basically, "I will give you the same $75,000 that Success Magazine offered you." And Jay Abraham moves to California. Now, when Jay started with Entrepreneur, it was a very small company. They had like 6 employees. And Entrepreneur was a newsletter format magazine. It was a subscription newsletter. And what they did is they sold business opportunity advice. So they sold special reports on how to start a carpet cleaning business, how to start a landscaping business, how to start a pool cleaning business. And they sold all these special reports. And that's the business they were in. But they were subscription based, so you signed up for the newsletter by paying an annual subscription. And when Jay got to Entrepreneur, he found that Chase Revell was really, really good about the subscription business, but he was not good about building anything on the back end and continuing to make offers to all of these people who had signed up. And so what Jay did is they had all of these different reports that they had created, and he bundled like 12 reports together, and he said, "Look, I know we would sell these for $200 or $300. Let's actually float this as an offer for $47 to all of our subscribers." And they did that, and they sold over 400,000 of these at $47 a piece, and it completely launched Entrepreneur Magazine. The money that they made from that initial mailing gave Chase Revell and Jay Abraham essentially the money to build the infrastructure and to really grow Entrepreneur. And in addition to doing that, what Jay started doing is he was really studying the newsletter business, and he had already worked with a lot of those people. And so what he was doing is if an offer worked in Entrepreneur, he would actually try that offer in several other newsletters. And he got really deep into the lead generation business. And so remember, he was in the lead generation business before when he was working at Unimail. But what he was doing now is he was actually attracting leads for Investors Business Daily, the Wall Street Journal, Life Magazine, just different things like that. And what he would do is he would take a postcard and he would put it in Entrepreneur, and if it worked in Entrepreneur, he would go and he would start putting it in all of these other newsletters. And one of the first newsletters he did this with, he made like $50,000 on one postcard mailing that was an insert into a newsletter. And when that happened, Jay knew that he was really onto something. And so what Jay did is he went out to everyone out there who had newsletters, and he went to them and he said, look, I want the exclusive rights to put inserts in your newsletter. And if you will give me those those rights, I will guarantee you $250,000 a year, and I will pay you some money up front. And so what he did is he bought the insertion rights to all of these different newsletters. And like I said, he was running leads for Investors Business Daily, the Wall Street Journal, all of these different companies who needed subscription bases to stay at a certain level. And Jay ultimately made millions of dollars from this. And while he was doing that, he took Entrepreneur to a completely new level. And like I said, when Jay started working with Entrepreneur, there were 6 employees. And within about 2 years, Entrepreneur had over 200 employees. Jay said they had a $500,000 weekly payroll they had to meet. And while Jay loved working for the company, he said that it was no longer fun anymore. He said that, big windfalls of money in the beginning were really, really exciting, but they didn't mean as much because now with a $500,000 weekly payroll, big windfalls were a part of the deal, and if you didn't have them, the company would probably go broke. And so Jay decided to leave Entrepreneur, and he was going to go back into the consulting business. So what Jay did is he put a blanket offer out there, and he said, look, if you're willing to pay round-trip ticket airfare and fly me to your area and spend 4 hours with me and tell me about your business, I will come anywhere in the United States for free as long as you're considering possibly hiring me. And this worked very well. Now you need to remember when Jay first started selling consulting, Jay was an unknown, and so his consulting was very, very low fee based, whatever kind of arrangement he could work out with the person. But everything had changed because Jay grew Entrepreneur into a multi-million-dollar company. He had the success with Icy Hot. He had the success with the Saturday Evening Post. And a lot of people knew about Jay now, especially because of all of the work he had done in the newsletter business. And so Jay said within a week he got his first round-trip plane ticket, and he flew to a guy's office and he sat down. He said he talked to the guy for 30 minutes, and the guy said, Jay, I want to hire you. How much is it going to cost? And Jay had never really thought much about what he was going to charge. And so Jay just said $20,000. And he figured that when he said $20,000, they would negotiate back and forth, and Jay might get $5,000 or $10,000 and then a percentage later on. The guy reached in his desk, pulled out a checkbook, and wrote Jay out a check for $20,000. And he said the next week the exact same thing happened. He said he got a round-trip plane ticket. He flew to a guy's office. He sat down. He said he talked to the guy for half an hour. The guy said, how much money is it going to cost to hire you? And Jay said, it will cost you $35,000. And the guy reached in his desk and wrote Jay out a check for $35,000. And Jay said from then on, he said he was just astonished, and it was a game to see how much money he could ask for and how much people would pay him. And he said that the next thing that happened is Howard Ruff was very, very heavily in the newsletter business, and someone needed help. And Howard said, you need to call Jay, you need to talk to him and hire him because he's very highly sought after, and if you don't hire Jay, you're probably not going to get an opportunity to because everybody's wanting to work with him. And so this guy called Jay. Jay flew to the guy's office, and Jay said he talked to the guy for 2 hours, and they worked out a deal. And the guy gave Jay a check for $100,000. And these original deals in the front end basically started Jay's consulting career. One of the problems that happened in the beginning is Jay said that he was selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of consulting per month, and unfortunately he was not fulfilling. He was more interested in going out and doing all of these deals and then actually doing the work, and he said he did get in a lot of trouble, and a lot of people were angry with him, and in some cases, a few people probably got refunds, but he said at one point he had to just kind of stop doing deals and start doing some of the consulting that he sold. And Jay did this for a few years and was very, very successful in the consulting business. But again, Jay's revenue would ebb and flow. It would be very, very high and then very, very low. And Jay went through another divorce. And after that divorce, he kind of went into what you would call a midlife crisis. And Jay did not work for about a year. And Jay was pretty much broke. He was trying to figure out what his next move would be. He didn't know what he wanted to do next. And he decided that he wanted to look at everything that had happened in the last 20 or so years, and he wanted to codify that. And he wanted to see really what he had here, how much content, what he had learned, and he decided to teach that in a seminar. And he was going to do a protege program. And what he was going to do, he was going to teach people how to be marketing consultants. And he was going to charge $15,000 for this. And what Jay thought at the time is he would sell maybe 5 to 10 seats. But he felt like, if he sold 10 people into this program and some of them were successful, he felt that he would make $15 to $20 million. Because he said that they would go out, they would find deals that were too big for them, and then they would turn those deals over to Jay, and they would share in that revenue. They would get a finder's fee, but Jay figured that he would make $15 to $20 million if these proteges were successful. And so when they launched the protege program, Jay had all of this goodwill built into the marketplace. Because he had helped so many people along the way. And I'll give you a few examples of that. When Guthrie Rinker started doing the thing with Anthony Robbins, Guthrie Rinker was a $1 million company, and by then Jay was doing like $20 million a year. It was right at the beginning of that consulting. And they wanted to hire Jay, and they wanted Jay actually to be a partner with them. And Jay said, I'm just too busy and I can't do it. But what I can do is I can help you guys along. And Jay basically helped them a lot. And he basically was instrumental in Anthony Robbins' career really taking off, because he helped Anthony Robbins and Guthrie Rinker a lot. And he didn't charge them for that. And he did this with a lot of people. He had a guy who was very, very successful in the newsletter business. And the guy launched a newsletter, and the guy made $15 million on the front end selling this newsletter. And the guy immediately moved to New York City. He took the top floor of the Avenue of the Americas, and he hired a huge staff, and he blew through all the money in about 6 months. And he was broke. And he went to Jay, and he asked Jay, he said, is there any way you can help me? Can you tell me what to do? Because, I need money just for payroll. And Jay said, give me 12 pages of your newsletter. And the guy gave Jay 12 pages of his newsletter. And what Jay did is Jay just started calling people. And what he did is he said, look, a friend of mine owed me some money. He gave me this space in his newsletter, and I just want to sell it because I don't really need the space right now. And he sold those 12 pages, and he got about $75,000 for that space. And he gave the guy all of the money. He didn't keep any of it. And so because Jay was helping so many people out in the marketplace, he had no problems getting people to actually endorse him and actually send out letters on his behalf. And so they sent out these blanket letters, and they assumed that they would sell 6 to 10 of these. Jay thought they would make $150,000 or so. He was not concerned about the front end money. His main focus was the back end money. And what happened is they ended up selling 200 of these. And I think the money on that was 200 times $15,000. That would be $3 million on the front end. And that was the first one. And they ended up having 6 of these, and in some of these they had over 400 people show up. And this launched Jay into a completely different area, and this put Jay deeply into the seminar business, and Jay ultimately made $250 million in the seminar business. And the reason he made so much money is because he did these protege boot camps that were $15,000. He put, I think he put over 1,000 people through them, which is 15 million on the front end there. And then on top of that, he had the home study course, plus all the residual consulting he got from that. Plus he started doing all of these other boot camps and seminars. And Jay said what they would do is they had all of these joint venture partners in the marketplace who were mailing for them. And they created this letter, and it basically was sent by all of these newsletter owners. And it basically said, hey, are you interested in working with the #1 marketing consultant in the world? Jay Abraham charges $50,000 per day for consulting. And if you want to grow your business to the next level, he has a few consulting days available. And they would send this out. They send hundreds of thousands of these out to the marketplace. And they would always get 5 or 6 people who wanted to hire Jay for one day. But this is the thing. The purpose of this letter was not to sell consulting at all. Even though they were offering consulting days at $50,000 and they would sell those, that was not the reason for sending those. What they would then do is they would follow that letter up a few weeks later, and it would say, hey, a lot of people expressed interest in hiring Jay for one day, but unfortunately he only has so much time available. So what he has decided to do, he has decided to do a 5-day seminar, and the cost of this is only going to be $15,000. So now you have an opportunity, rather than spending a day with Jay for $50,000, you can spend 5 whole days with Jay for $15,000. And they sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of seats to seminars using this model. They did the PEQ, PEQ2, PEQ cubed. They did a number of mastermind events. And every time they did an event, they created a product that they would go back and sell to everyone who didn't show up at the event. And these products were being sold for $3,000 to $5,000 per product. And so like I said, this planted Jay in the seminar business, and Jay ultimately made $250 million in the seminar business. And I'll be honest with you, Jay talks a lot about this. He did not like the seminar business very well. He was unhappy in the seminar business. He felt mostly he was people's intellectual entertainment, didn't like that position at all. He wanted to work with real-life business owners. And fortunately, the seminar business was bringing him a stream of ongoing consulting clients. And so Jay left the seminar business and he went right back to doing what he loved to do, which was consulting. And so what Jay ultimately did, he continued to push his price point in the consulting industry. And you know, at first he was working for $20,000 and then $50,000, and he got those fees up to $100,000. And what Jay does today is he works in the consulting industry, and he's very, very highly sought after. And his fees start at $100,000. Plus a percentage of the ongoing revenue he creates for business owners. And what he does in addition to that, he does consulting deals where he will actually get a lifetime percentage of a business for growing that business to a certain level. And so if you look at the way the consulting industry works, and if you're a coach or a consultant, how this works is simply you work for fees at the beginning, and those fees can be $500, $1,000, $2,000, whatever the marketplace will give you. And as you get better at what you do, those fees constantly get raised. And the more people are interested in hiring you, the more you can charge for that. Well, at some point, what you start working in is a fee and a percentage of the revenue you create for the company. And so you might be getting $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 up front, plus a percentage of the revenue that has a cap. So you might have your cap at $200,000 or $300,000 based on additional revenue. And you know, Dan Kennedy, Frank Kern, a lot of people are using that model. And then, of course, the third model, which is the next level, which is what a lot of people go for, is legacy. And legacy is where you get a percent, you get an amount of money up front, but you get an ownership stake in the business where you're going to get royalties basically on that business for a lifetime. And that's what Jay is constantly looking for now. And the reason for that is the financial need is no longer there. And what happens as people's fees go up and up, when they no longer are in a position where they have to have that financial revenue or that stream of income, what they're looking for is long-term wealth, and that long-term wealth comes from long-term income or indefinite income from a number of different places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end out of this particular section. I feel like I've given you a lot of information about how Jay Abraham got his start, and I really want you to think about everything that Jay learned as he was moving through all of this. He learned about risk reversal. He learned about the value of building a back end. He learned about the value of building relationships in a business. And he learned about the accumulation of putting all of that together and putting it out there into the marketplace. And Jay has done very, very well for himself. I studied Jay 2,000 hours at the very beginning here. And, and I still study Jay today. And just to tell you another thing that Jay's doing today, I almost left this out. Jay does a lot of work in Japan. And right now, Jay's in Japan, and this is what happens. He gets paid $25,000 to do like a 2 to 4 hour consultation with a business owner. And he does this on stage. And he does these for a period of 5 days at a time. So these business owners give Jay $25,000. And what Jay does is he's on a stage. They will tell him about their business. He will break their business down, and he will give it back to them and tell them what they need to do to grow. And not only does he get $25,000 from the business owners, and usually they've got 15 to 20 lined up, he also has 200 people in the audience that pay $5,000 just to watch the process. So he's making $1 million from the audience. And he's making another $1 million to $2 million on the stage in some cases. And not only that, a lot of those people ultimately hired Jay. And so I just wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about what he's doing now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to end out of this. I really appreciate you all taking a look at the video today, and thanks a lot.